Hi, I'm Natalie Jackson, and I am the plant detective. I'm here to solve your plant mysteries and to help you feel confident about raising your plants. Please bring more plants into your home and into your balcony and into your yard because they are here to provide for you. So, I'm answering 4 questions today from 4 lovely people who submitted questions to my call to action. If you would like to send your questions in, please do so at cultivatelovela.com, or you can send them to me on Instagram direct messages at Natalie Cultivates, as you can see down here. So, my first question of the day is from Leilani, and the question is, what are some low maintenance houseplants? Well, this is an excellent question because there are a lot of really great plants. So this is a little collection I have here by a balcony window. I don't try to get direct sunlight on these plants, but indirect sunlight by moving the blinds. And there is a corn palm, an aloe vera plant, a dracaena, and a money tree. And these plants, we've had to move some of our plants around a little bit because of the summer heat. So some of them are actually from a different room, and we moved them in here to get a little more light because the other room gets so hot, and this one does not. But it looks like they're all doing pretty well and growing. The trick with some of these plants is if they're growing towards the window, towards the light, just spin them around, and then they'll straighten out to reach back over to the sunlight. And that's how you can kind of get them to be straight. You can see my corn palm is kind of like tilted over, and I just spun it around to get it to straighten out. So that's an excellent plant. Same with the money tree, very low maintenance, and they're typically 3 braided together at the bottom, and they are symbolic of prosperity and money and wealth. So that's kind of fun too. Aloe vera, like that big one down there. I also have this. Ooh, big picture. I have this little tiny one in a container on my desk here. Aloe vera is very easy to grow, and you can really control the size of it by like how you feed it and the size of the container that it's in. I just give it a little water and some love and some sunshine, and it grows. You can see here it's in a very sunny spot in my office, and it just takes in the sun. I would recommend with any plants that you have inside of your house, just make sure you give them a little dusting. Wipe them off with like a wet towel. That will help them grow really well. And let's see. This one is another dracaena that I have, a striped dracaena. Very beautiful plant. This one's from the Melrose Trading Post, and it's in a fabric grow bag. Fabric grow bag. Kind of hard to say. Try it. Fabric grow bag. Okay. So in which basically, because it's fabric, it's breathable, so the roots don't really overgrow inside of this kind of container like it might in a plastic or ceramic container. It really finds a good balance and breathing room. And so these plants won't get too big inside of these grow bags, but if I got a bigger grow bag, it would. And here's another look at that money tree. Such a cute tree. And this is a pothos. These are very easy to grow, very easy to propagate. It will tell you when it needs some water. It'll look really droopy and sad. I watered this one, I think, the day before I took this picture. So, it had some water, but it was starting to get dry. These are really beautiful plants, very easy, low maintenance. If a branch falls off, if you accidentally break off a branch, just stick it in a little pot of soil and it'll grow a whole new plant. We've done that a few times. You can train them up like some bamboo, like on a trellis. You can just have them hanging down from a basket. They're really great climbers, so you can get creative with how you have them in your house. But I do love the traditional like hanging basket. Houseplants really brighten up a space. They, of course, provide oxygen for us and absorb some of the carbon dioxide in our homes. And there are many other benefits to having houseplants in the home, but really, for me, the best part is just having so much greenery in the home is very calming, very soothing, and it really helps me just enjoy my home. So, Leilani, to answer your question, there are some really great low maintenance plants that can really brighten up your space. Just make sure that you do have, enough sunlight for them, and that if you're watering them, that they don't get too wet because they are indoors. And also make sure that they're not anywhere in the path of like an air conditioning vent where it might be caught in a draft, because houseplants do not like that. And my top pick is aloe vera and the pothos. Definitely super easy to take care of. So Leilani, I really hope that you get started with having some plants in your home. Succulents and cacti are also very easy as long as they get some sun. So let me know what kind of plant you end up getting and send me pictures. I want to see your plant babies. All right. Ooh, and another note about having houseplants, it does get really hot in Los Angeles, which is where I am. So oftentimes I will have a fan on some of my more sensitive plants, or, I'll try to be home a little more so that the air conditioning is running a little bit, just so that the apartment doesn't get too hot. If for any reason your apartment or your home gets really hot and your houseplants just look really exacerbated, do give them some water and let them have like a nice soaking, but don't water them again until they're completely dry. Okay, so now the next question is from Brittany, and the question is, what is a good tall balcony plant that isn't a cactus? The area she has gets morning sunshine, and she wants a plant that doesn't need to be watered more than once a week. That's fair. If you're a busy person and you have a balcony space, you still want to have some beautiful plants, but you don't necessarily want to be, taking care of them all the time. Totally get it. So I'm going to let you know about some nice plants that really thrive and get tall, especially with a big enough container. So the first plant you can see here, I am smelling a plant, and so is my friend and my mom. And we're all smelling autumn moon sage. And this is this beautiful little plant right here with the little white, purple, and pink flowers. The leaves smell like a beautiful sage scent, very floral. The flowers are edible also, and it is a drought-tolerant plant. You can get them at some garden stores. You might have to kind of poke around a little bit. I've seen them at Armstrong, and I've seen some in not so good shape at Home Depot, so maybe check back there and they might have some too. But autumn moon sage is an excellent plant that can grow really big. We have a lot of these at Fairfax High School also. They come in different colors, and the ones at Fairfax are red and pink, and I love these. The white and pink flowers are so cute. I'm 5 feet tall, so you can see there the plant's at about my height, and it gets really beautiful. Just give it a big enough container to grow. I'd say, at least 12 inches or more if you can, 24 inches, whatever you can do. I think it'll really get big and beautiful, and then you can kind of prune it and shape it like a bush. And the same thing goes for rosemary, which you can see me hugging here. And now, of course, these plants are not on my balcony. They are in my garden, which is part of the reason why they're so big. But they do not, the root systems are not that big, So if you have a large container and you start off with a good size rosemary or autumn moon sage plant, it will get pretty big. This picture was taken in April, and it is now July, and this plant is a bit taller. So, I've been shaping my rosemary plant by wrapping it with twine to give it more of a column shape. And then for a while, I've had it in a tomato cage to also give it like that tall column shape. And the benefits of rosemary are endless, Brittany. Like, you get evergreen leaves all year long, so it's beautiful all year long. And you get rosemary to cook with if you so choose, or you can dry it and have it as a potpourri if you're into potpourri, which I think might be a dying art. And it's just such a like invigorating plant. Depending on what kind you get, you'll get a season of flowers. So there are some white ones, some blue ones, purple and pink. So it just kind of depends what variety you're interested in. But they really don't need much. They're no fuss, and you can shape them in all kinds of ways to make them like a hedge, or I've seen them grown so that they grow like a little tree, like a little popsicle tree. So there's one thick stem and then a ball of the leaves at the top. Those are also really cool. And something I've started growing on my garden, it is a cactus, but it's a dragon fruit plant. So it's a cactus, but you get to eat the fruit. Kind of cool. Right now, I got this one. It's on my balcony. It is twice this size, and it is really, really beautiful. The shape obviously is very beautiful, and I hope to carefully transplant it into a larger container once it's ready. But I'm really excited to get some dragon fruit. So if you're interested in kind of a no-fuss plant that is a cactus, but it's pretty easy to handle, it's not too spiky, and you get a fruit, this might be an interesting option. Definitely falls under the watering requirements that you give, and it seems like it could use a little more sun than what you have, but I think it'll do fine. My dragon fruit plant is on my balcony that only gets morning sun, and it's doing really well. And then, of course, there are other fruit trees you can grow. I have a Meyer lemon fruit tree. It is a little more demanding than some of the other plants I mentioned, but you do get usually 2 different fruitings with a dwarf Meyer lemon, usually one around like the winter time, and then one again near the spring summer, just depending on how your cycle goes. And this plant really, I mean, what can I say? I love Meyer lemons, so it's a beautiful plant to have. It smells so good when the lemon plant is in bloom. The blossoms just have the most beautiful smell. And again, this would be a good balcony plant that isn't a cactus, but it does need a little more attention, a little more love. But if you're willing to put in a little more time in the future, this one might be a good option. There's also pomegranate trees that actually don't need that much attention and do well in a large container plant, and phaeosias, which are pineapple guavas, and they are very delicious and can grow up to be really big depending on if they're planted in the ground or if they're in a really big container. I also have an olive tree, a little miniature olive tree that I'm hoping, every year it does grow a little bit bigger, so I'm hoping it will get taller, but right now it's about 2 feet tall, and it's just a beautiful little tree that it just produces nice little olives. The mockingbirds come down and eat them, and then we have a beautiful evergreen tree all year long. So Brittany, I hope I've given you a few interesting options. I do think rosemary and autumn moon sage are the most interesting ones you can go with, but you can definitely explore different options with anything that is fruiting that might give you a yield, just because it's kind of a cool thing to get to be able to produce on your balcony. Let me know what you end up getting and send me a photo. Okay, and the next question comes from Caren. She has these 2 succulents. They're very cute. And she's asking, are these real succulents and how do I take care of them? Her follow-up question is, how often should you spray water succulents, and is it bad if they are in a room inside without much sunlight? So these definitely look real to me. They are a plant I'm familiar with. I have one myself right here in my garden. In the white tub, we have Haworthiopsis fasciata, which blooms in October and November. And in the yellow one, there is a fairy washboard known as Haworthiopsis limifolia. And so something to know about these plants is they do like some sun, but they also don't mind shade. So if it can get a little bit of sunlight, which it looks like it does get some sunlight, it would be good. More direct sunlight would be better. I grow a lot of these outdoors and they do really well, and they just keep growing and growing. Once it gets crowded, like this one looks pretty crowded, once it starts growing a little more, you do want to repot these. You can divide them up and put them each in their own planter, and they will grow up bigger. And let's see. Really, especially with this one here, the fairy washboard, you want to repot these once every 2 years because they will run out of room for their little roots to grow. So as far as watering these plants, the main objective is to make sure that the roots get wet. So spraying the foliage with this kind of a plant is not a bad idea, just because the way they're shaped encourages water to drip down into the soil and into the roots. But it is good to make sure you're giving it a good soaking and then letting it completely dry out before you give it any more water. I have some succulents that are in more sensitive or fragile kind of containers, so I am definitely careful when I'm watering those. And if this or the other one has a drainage hole, of course it's good to give it a good soaking. Put it in like a Tupperware or another container so that the water doesn't get everywhere, and then let it kind of soak up and dry up before you water it again. And just make sure that it will be okay without watering all the time, but it does need water. Some people have like a water meter, moisture meter, and it has like a little probe that you can stick into the soil. If there's a room, you can also stick your finger in there and see if it's wet. Pretty simple. But either way, make sure that it's dry before you water again, and just make sure you're taking care of those roots. It's very important. So Caren, I know you're going to be a great plant mom to these plants, and send me pictures so I can see how they progress. And the last question is from Rachel, and it is about her corn plant. So Rachel's growing this corn in a container, and it's growing pretty tall. She said it's about 4 or 5 feet tall, and she had a question about how at the bottom here you can see that there are these little kind of like fingers growing out from the base, and she just wants to make sure that's okay, that's normal, it's not a bad thing. And from what I've researched, it is totally normal. My corn plants have the same thing. It does seem to help them with their stability. So, plants are typically grown in clumps together, and the big thing about them is that they get pollinated by the wind. So when there's more corn stalks around and the wind blows, it's more likely that the pollen will fall to where the corn is growing and will pollinate it. So if you're having issue with corn forming on these plants, shake them a little bit so that the pollen will come down, especially if you don't get much wind in your backyard area. That would be pretty important to do to make sure that corn does form. And remember, corn is not pollinated by insects, just the wind, so shaking it will really help. Corn does need deep, rich soil. I believe your corn will form okay in that pot, but I do think if it had a bigger pot and even more corn stalks around it, you would have a bit more success. So just something to think about for next year. If you want to plant corn, get a bigger deeper container and put a few more corn plants in there. I do want to show you a couple of my corn plants that I have growing now. Erin and I planted corn in our garden, and we basically planted out a whole veggie area. And so in the early spring, we started planting seeds for tomato plants and pepper plants and squash. And we also received some plants from when I was going through the Master Gardener class. They would have different plants that we could take for our gardens, a lot of peppers, which was really nice. And so we planted out this corner area with tomatoes, peppers, and corn. And you can see kind of at the top, the corn is really tall. Now, of course, it is growing in the ground, not in a container. So my corn, I'm going to say it's about 8 to 10 feet tall. Some of the stalks, some of them are a bit shorter, especially the ones that were slower to grow in the beginning. Those are a lot shorter, but the ones that took off right away are very tall. The wind does come through and shake them up, and the pollen does fall down. And we have had some success with growing corn. My only issue is that the ants in our garden really, really like to eat the corn. And I want to eat the corn, so it does make me a little mad, but I pick what I can, cut off the parts that they ate, and then wash and cook the parts that they did not eat that are good. So you can see here through this, I've got like a tomato plant growing and a corn plant growing, and they're all kind of crisscrossing each other, but they are getting pollinated. The tomato plants are full of tomatoes, the peppers are full of peppers, and the corn stalks all have corn growing along them. And you can see here in the middle, at the top, you can see the brown silks. When the silks are brown, that is a good sign that your corn is ready to pick. If you let it go too long, ants will come in and eat it, so pick it soon. They may already start eating it because they're rude like that, but don't worry, you'll get some. And you can see here, this is the bottom of that area. The pepper plants are all dotted along there, and then you can see a corn is growing on the stalk over to the side. And yeah, this is a variety of corn that is pretty thin to begin with. Some corn stalks are much thicker, but these are probably like an inch and a half thick. But the corn is full size and it is really delicious. So, I've never grown corn in a container, Rachel, so I'm not exactly sure if the container that you have is deep enough and large enough, but we'll definitely see as far as like how your corn plant progresses. But helping it pollinate will definitely expand your success there. My neighbor in this apartment building, a couple apartments down, is growing corn on her balcony in a container, but it is a larger container than what you have. And her plants are probably 7 to 8 feet tall right now. So I do think the container size may have something to do with them not getting much taller. I would also be curious to know what the variety of corn is that you're growing, just in case maybe that one doesn't grow that large to begin with. Its size may not be an issue. It may actually be a normal trait of the kind of corn you're growing. So Rachel, please, please, please continue to send me updates on your plants, especially the corn. I want to see what your corn plants end up looking like. Mine, I've kind of made it into a little bit of a jungle at the community garden plot that I have. And it is fun, a little treacherous if you don't like ants, but it is fun to kind of dive in there and just see what you can pull out. Like, oh, here's a tomato, here's a corn, here's a pepper. And, the main thing if you're going to do anything like this is to just make sure you keep trimming things back to help the plants grow, because I will say the tomato plants did take over. And you're supposed to trim your tomato plants anyway, just to make sure that they have good air circulation. So I've trimmed these plants several times, and there definitely is room for the wind to blow through. But if you are going to go ahead and grow within like a container garden on a patio, I would make sure that you space out the plants a couple inches away from each other inside of the container, the corn plants, but pack them in there. Just grow a whole bunch of them because they do like to grow in clumps. So yes, keep growing this corn. Keep me updated. I want to see how it goes, Rachel. And thank you so much for submitting your question, and make sure you pollinate that corn. And those were the 4 questions of this week's video. I will be going to Hawaii this week. I'm so excited. My husband Aaron has been in Hawaii for the summer working on a TV show, and I'm going to go visit him for 10 days. And I'm so excited. We're going to be on Oahu, and then we are going to go to Kauai for a couple days, which is the Garden Island. Hello. It's my favorite island. It's so beautiful, picturesque. Green water, just so many beautiful plants, so many botanical gardens. I am so excited, and I am of course going to be taking pictures of the plants that I see, and I'll make a little video about the plants and hopefully some of the cool gardens that I get to go to. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of Natalie Jackson Plant Detective. Please send in your questions to @NatalieCultivates on Instagram or cultivatelovela.com. If you go to my website, there is a form where you can also attach pictures and videos if you'd like. And of course, you can send pictures and videos on Instagram through direct messages. The pictures really help. Obviously, it makes the video look awesome, but it also helps me get a visual of what's going on with your plant and helps me solve the mystery. So any evidence is helpful. Once again, my name is Natalie Jackson. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please like and subscribe, tell all your friends, send in your questions. Bye, Earthlings! Have a lovely day!